Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sarina Fazan, and welcome to this very special podcast series as we get ready for the big game, Super Bowl 55. I'm here, honored to be here, with Emmy Award-winning anchor Brendan McLaughlin, we worked together.
Many years, yes.
Many
Are you
years.
telling me the Super Bowl is in Tampa Bay?
It's in Tampa Bay. Jim Previtera, head of stadium operations for the Tampa Bay Rays, but is also very well-versed with Super Bowls and did a lot of security. And also joining us, Hillsborough County State Attorney Andrew Warren. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great. Guys, thank you so much for being here
Happy
this
to be here,
morning.
Sarina.
So, Brendan, why don't you lead us off, since this is, here's one of my mentors right here, and I get to anchor a show with him. Kick it off.
Well, I'm a big fan of these two guys here, and I left the business before Andrew Warren came into office, so we never had any journalist public official relationship. But I hope we can, go play frisbee golf or something one of these days. But no, there's so many dimensions to having a Super Bowl here, and of course, law enforcement and security is a big part of that. It's always one of the sidebars to talk about all these people coming in from out of town. Some of them, most of them, of course, here to just enjoy a good football game. Some of them here for less wholesome reasons. So as state attorney, I got to ask you, what would you consider to be your number one priority when you have such a high-profile event descending on our humble little burg?
Brennan, I think the number one priority here is making sure the Bucs win by any means necessary. So that's clearly where our priorities are. After that, however, this is not an ordinary event. This is a special security event. You're going to have the U.S. and Canadian military through NORAD patrolling the skies. So this is a big deal here. It's a big deal primarily because you have the threat with any event of this size of terrorism. That's the first thing on everybody's mind. But beyond that, you also have concerns following the riots at the Capitol earlier this month, or actually last month, now that we're in February. You have all the usual concerns about a large event like this that are heightened by COVID and making sure that people are trying to stay safe and healthy and socially distanced and wearing masks. And then you have concerns about people just ripping each other off. Anytime you have an event like this where a lot of money is being spent, there's the opportunity to take advantage of unsuspecting victims. So this is, we're fighting on all fronts here.
Well, Jim, you've actually led security for many years, and clearly the Rays also history making this year. So talk to us about what Andrew is talking about. What goes into all of this security?
Well, I think as the state attorney said, this is a really big picture for security. It's not just the physical security over the stadium. It's layer over layer over layer of security. And, it began probably, as the state attorney would know better than I, the sheriff probably started well over a year ago, I'm sure, with the planning once the Super Bowl was announced in Tampa. But, the big thing that Andrew said that really struck a chord with me is that, we really have to worry about our whole area. You do have a lot of people with bad motives who will descend on the Bay Area, everybody from human traffickers to gamblers, that will try to do things to influence the game or to run illegal gambling in the state. And then just fraud, take advantage of people. Counterfeit tickets have become a lot more sophisticated over the years. So ticket counterfeiting is really not as big a concern as it was before. A lot of tickets have gone electronic. We as the Rays have gone electronic with our tickets. But I think for this event, you'll see a lot more focus on electronic fraud, on wire fraud. There's just a lot of things, and for the state attorney, obviously Andrew's got a whole lot on his plate to worry about. because you have to be ready for every eventuality. And then he hit it on the head from the onset. Terrorism. It's the physical security of the stadium. It's a layered approach. It's not just barriers around the stadium. Picture a bubble over the Bay Area, and it includes airspace security. You're going to have everything from National Guard units to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. They'll have assets in the area. Homeland Security will have assets in the area, and they'll be monitoring airspace. They'll be monitoring air quality. There's a lot of concerns in this day and age, and I think what we saw on January 6th is that there's a lot of domestic concerns too. And I think too often the focus after 9/11 became on people coming from other shores, but there's a lot of groups within the United States that we have to worry about too.
Well, Jim, can I ask you, I look back to the Republican National Convention in 2012, and there were some people that said that maybe some of the security precautions were a little heavy-handed, that it kind of turned downtown Tampa into a little bit of an armed fortress there and left Tampa a little bit less than welcoming. How do you balance that police presence, your visibility, how heavy-handed or light-handed you might be, especially when you're talking about a Super Bowl, which is essentially a family affair in many ways. You're going to have children, you're going to have family generally coming to enjoy a football game.
It's tough. I believe it was one of the former directors of the FBI said years ago, security is always too much until the day it wasn't enough. And that's the balance you have to strike, is you have to make sure that your plan is adequate enough to address every concern. But as anybody will tell you is, we have to make sure that it doesn't infringe on people's civil liberties either. So, the designation of a national special security event, or in this case, I believe a Tier 1 event, which is just below a national security event, they're going to establish what the perimeter is. I know that in 2009, the perimeter extended right up to the airport fence on the other side of Dale Mabry, and that's where you entered one of the layers of perimeters for the stadium. So they'll define the perimeters, and then they have to make sure that people have the right to come out, to move about freely. You can't just shut down roads to shut down roads. There has to be a legitimate reason for it. So Chief Dugan, who was heavily involved in the Republican National Convention security, is the right man for the job. Mayor Castor, she's got a tremendous background in this type of stuff. So I got to believe that between the two of them, the state attorney, that they have really worked to define those boundaries and to make them reasonable, but yet not shut Tampa down.
Sure.
Well, I think that's a really a good point also to bring in Andrew Warren back in about your freedom. You want to respect people's freedoms as well, but be very cautious in a time like this.
Yeah, and Andrew, you had to exercise a lot of discretion in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests and those following the death of George Floyd. Some prosecutorial decisions that you had to make. How aggressively do you pursue these prosecutions in people that are caught up and arrested for whatever reason? You'll have to make those same decisions in the course of the Super Bowl event, I imagine.
That's right. And it really depends on the nature of the offense that we're talking about. As Jim said, you have to err on the side of caution here, because the worst case scenario is not just a worst case scenario for this event. It affects so many events in the future down the road too. We don't want to ruin future Super Bowls because there was a security lapse at this one. When we're talking about crimes that people may be committing, there's obviously a difference if someone is not following the mask ordinance that was signed by our mayor versus someone who's trying to, attack somebody, or of course a terrorist threat or anything like that. And I think the mayor and the police chief have done a really good job of talking about the fact that on the one side, the social distancing aspect, the wearing a mask, they're encouraging compliance. They want people to be respectful and kind and thoughtful of the fact that we have this pandemic that's now killed 450,000 Americans, even 1,300 people in Hillsborough County, and to wear masks and to follow those rules. But the idea is not that law enforcement is going to come and start slapping handcuffs on people if they don't have a mask on.
Tampa Bay is not Mayberry. It's got a reputation when it comes to people who want to come in and have a good time that may come right up against the border of what's legal and what's not. On a very serious note, human trafficking is an issue that comes to the fore, especially when you have a lot of people from out of town, people on expense accounts, people who are away from home and feel that maybe a different code of behavior comes into effect when they're on a vacation for something like this. So what kind of a priority has prostitution and human trafficking become for the state attorney's office?
It's a great question. It's been a focus since Super Bowl planning started over a year ago. You have the fact that Tampa Bay is a hub for human trafficking to begin with, and the Super Bowl is a worldwide human trafficking event. So now you have this perfect storm between the two. And we've been preparing for it. Attorney General Moody has started a task force. We had local task forces as well. We've been raising awareness. We have been participating in an ad campaign that the NFL has helped with to remind people that it is illegal, that it's not going to be tolerated, that it will be prosecuted. But the reality is that human trafficking lurks in the dark corners of our society, and it's often hard to see. It's hard to identify victims. It's really hard to get support to victims when they need it. But this is one of those occasions where we can raise awareness about such an important issue while also doing the law enforcement and prosecutorial work that is required to go after the people who are taking advantage of our women and children.
So Jim, let's turn to you because you've actually, we introduced you as, the head of stadium operations for the Tampa Bay Rays. But if you could give us a little bit of your background, your former Secret Service, you worked at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, third in command at the time, assistant police chief in St. Petersburg. Hearing the state attorney talk about human trafficking, boots on the ground, you must have seen so many things, sadly, that all of us hope not to see. But can you just describe to us the seriousness of this?
Yeah, no, the 31 years of law enforcement and the focus on human trafficking over the last, probably 7 to 10 years is where you've really seen that come to life in terms of focus. It's a problem that's not new to the rest of the world, but in a lot of ways it was, something that the United States had to discover. But I think the fact that the Attorney General, the state attorney, law enforcement leadership in the Bay Area are so aware of it, and that there's task forces in place. Clearwater had a task force for probably, 7-10 years in the Bay Area. I think it's moved over to St. Pete now as the headquartered agency, but it's a task force. That's the good thing about law enforcement in this area is, there's geographic boundaries to the cities and the counties, but when it comes to working together, this Bay Area law enforcement community is unbelievable. There's a regional domestic security task force that is heavily involved in the game, but then there's these human trafficking task force, and there'll be other task force. There'll be task forces centered on financial crimes. But I think that's where this area is really ahead of the game. Is there's a lot of areas like it in the country, but Tampa's always stayed ahead of the curve in terms of interagency cooperation and the ability to work together. The car may have blue stripes on it, but if it needs to be in a green area, they're going to move it over there. And if the sheriff needs to move resources in, they're going to move it in. Great relationship here. There's a lot of places where the relationship with federal agencies is a little frictional at times, but quite honestly, the federal agencies here, the FBI, the Secret Service, the ATF has an incredible presence in this area. All of these partners working together as one group is what's really going to be able to address the problem of human trafficking and to keep people safe while they're here in the Tampa Bay area.
Well, I can say for Brendan and myself, covering the Republican National Convention, covering Bollywood that came to Tampa, not one arrest for that. It is great to see, right, Brendan, that I just feel like our law enforcement really works together to keep people safe.
It's true, and I think Tampa Bay has got a well-earned reputation for holding events that go smoothly, where people do come and go, and they're safe, and they enjoy the entire experience. I would like to ask Jim something, though. You mentioned earlier, you made reference to the fact that tickets are electronic generally now. I had an acquaintance of mine who got a Tesla recently, and he said, there's no key to this car. It's on my phone. And he says, I can't imagine how you steal a Tesla. Is there an analogy here for tickets? Does the old-fashioned ticket scalping, where I've seen it in previous Super Bowls, where a family, they buy 4 tickets from somebody at the game and they spend $1,000 and they go to get in, and they're fake tickets, and it's heartbreaking. Is that kind of going away to a certain extent?
I mean, that's what the focus towards electronic ticketing is really. It's more efficient for the ticketing people, but from a security standpoint, that's exactly what we're looking to do, is combat fraud. You know, I'm never going to say anything is foolproof, because every time I think we find a foolproof answer, the fraudsters find a way around it, or they try to. And you know, there will be people that will try to dupe people into buying, fraudulent electronic tickets or transferring fraudulent electronic tickets to them. And I don't know if the Super Bowl is still giving a paper version of Super. Everybody likes to have. I went to the first Super Bowl in Tampa. I still have the ticket. And
1984.
Exactly. Yeah, Raiders and Redskins. But yeah, I mean, everybody wants to have that ticket to hang on to. But in terms of fraud, yeah, I think electronic is the way to go. But as we've all seen with hacks of government systems and the hacks of personal computers, identity theft, all those things, nothing is foolproof. And so that's where I think the law enforcement, the technological advancements in law enforcement are always trying to keep up with the fraudsters. And so this is just another case where that's going to have to happen as time evolves and we become more immersed in electronic ticketing. Law enforcement's going to have to keep up with the fraud that's out there.
Andrew, what is the penalty for that? Do you know offhand, or is each scenario different?
Well, it's potentially a grand theft if you're stealing from someone. So you can be looking at 5 years. The problem is it's really hard to catch the people who are ripping others off, and it's even harder to get the money back. That's why we tell people they have to have their guard up. They have to do their homework and think twice about whether this is a reputable seller and whether the offer makes sense. I mean, to Brendan's example, if someone's offering 4 tickets for $1,000, that's a red flag when tickets are going for like $5 and $10 grand a piece. But the idea is that, to Jim's point, it's gotten better in terms of protecting against those scams, but there are still people out there who they see this as an opportunity to commit a fraud, to scam others, and they will be as creative as they can be to try to come up with a way to rip people off to take advantage of the Super Bowl.
And I think our parents probably gave us the best advice as kids. If it sounds too good to be true,
It is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But while we got you both here, going back to the more serious aspect of terrorism, there's been a lot of discussion lately that perhaps among the FBI and some of the other agencies, there's been too much focus on Islamic terrorism, religious extremism, which of course stems from 9/11, and there's certain justification in that. To the exclusion, or to some extent, of white nationalism and some of the sort of the QAnon and extremist ideologies that came to fore on January 6th in front of the Capitol. What keeps you up at night in terms of a terror scenario where some domestic group might want to use this platform as a way of making a statement that is heard around the world? Andrew Warren.
It's exactly what you said. I mean, you look back over the last, 2 decades since 9/11, and we've had very few incidents where you have foreign nationals attacking U.S. soil. And part of that's because national security has stopped some of those attacks before they could occur. But more recently, we've had a lot of domestic terrorism. That's been a bigger issue. And when you hear national security apparatus and federal law enforcement paying more attention to those things, especially in the wake of the January 6th riots, that's a good thing. At the same time, Super Bowl, huge event. We have MacDill Air Force Base here. There are a lot of soft targets around in this area, and this is a worldwide event, which is why there's so much security going on. And as I said before, you have to err on the side of caution. And I think our local law enforcement, working with federal law enforcement, has done a fantastic job doing everything they can to make this a safe, enjoyable game for everybody.
I think that for our federal partners and for even the local agencies, the plate has always been filled in terms of groups of interest and organizations that espouse violence. I think the focus sometimes shifts back and forth, Brendan, but I think that, I know just from, I've been out of it now for a little over 3 years, but I know that there was never a total disregard for the domestic threats. I mean, if you go back to Oklahoma City, that was a prime example of one. I think that was a sounding call to law enforcement, to the federal law enforcement and to local law enforcement, that there was a significant threat from within our borders. We've always focused on outlaw motorcycle gangs and the threats that they may pose or not pose, but I think that with the plate so full, it's a very challenging task for the FBI. And I hear the FBI get a bad rap all the time because they didn't do this or they didn't do that. But I think that behind the scenes, they're doing a lot more than we know they are, and they are focusing on those threats. But as Andrew said, the focus you have to move your eyes. You can't zero in. You can't get tunnel vision on foreign extremists. You can't get tunnel vision on domestic threats because there's so many threats out there. And the threat that Andrew referenced, soft targets. That was the thing that always scared me, was the soft targets. And that's why I say that security bubble has to be wide. And it has to be encompassing throughout the Bay Area.
Well, that raises the question. In previous Super Bowls that we've had here, the game itself and the NFL experience was on the same property, which allows you to have perhaps a single perimeter or set of perimeters. Now we have the game at Raymond James Stadium, and we've got the NFL experience, which is this big sprawling event that takes up 30 acres at Julian B. Lane Park and across the river at Waterworks. Does that complicate and make their job more difficult? Oh
yeah, I mean you have limited resources, and that's why this regional approach that they take in this area with the Regional Domestic Security Task Force, and over the years the Urban Area Security Initiative, which was a post 9/11 endeavor that helped fund a lot of the equipment and a lot of the training and technology that the regional partners depend on. But you won't just see the Tampa Police Department, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. You'll see Florida Department of Law Enforcement. You'll see every federal agency that has any kind of jurisdiction over that. But then you'll also see the Citrus County Sheriff's Office, who participates in the Regional Domestic Security Task Force bomb team. They're key members of that. Manatee County, they're part of that team too. Tampa Police Department head the Regional Domestic Security Task Force bomb team. And the sergeant at TPD that heads that up is known all over the country for his expertise, but so are all those members from all those different agencies that are going to pull together. And so when you stretch the venue out, obviously you stretch your resources out, and that's where that regional domestic security concept comes in, because now we can bring resources from other places. We could bring them from Pinellas County. We could bring them from St. Pete. We could bring those partners over there, and they can help. At the same time, recognizing there's events going on over here because of COVID, they've had to social distance as far as events over in the Bay Area, over in Pinellas County, and other counties, Pasco. So, you gotta. It's really a challenging time. I give a lot of credit to Andrew and to the guys that are in there leading the law enforcement effort, because it's going to be challenging. I guarantee you, when this is over, and hopefully after the Bucs victory celebration is over, that Andrew and Chief Duke and all them are going to take a couple days to rest, because this is going to be a taxing experience.
Well, to that point, maybe he won't, because your pipeline of prosecutions and offenders after the Super Bowl could be enormous, between everything from scalpers to human traffickers to Johns to people who violate COVID restrictions. How is your office situated in terms of resources to deal with what will probably be a huge increase in cases?
Well, we're prepared to handle that influx of cases over the next couple of weeks. I appreciate Jim's point, but I just want to remind people that when there's a security issue here, we naturally turn to the men and women in uniform, not the men and women wearing suits with their legal books. So law enforcement is the one who's on the points of contact in the first line of defense for all this. And if you think back to 9/11, recall that right after 9/11, there were conversations about the fact that law enforcement didn't share information, and there wasn't this platform to share information to prevent those attacks. In the 20 years since, law enforcement's done a really good job, and Jim made this point earlier. Our local law enforcement here works extremely well together, from municipal law enforcement and the sheriffs and the police agencies, police departments, to state law enforcement, to the feds. These guys are all working together. They have been for over a year now. It's really a good thing when you look at how much cooperation and collaboration there is, because it is a massive event. And it's a massive event taking place not just in one location, but in multiple locations with a variety of potential threats there.
You know, I know clearly none of us want to live in this unprecedented time with COVID, but with having fewer people out and about, does that lessen security a little bit? How do I phrase that question, right, Brendan? I mean, of course I know we're being very safe and very secure, but does that alleviate some of the pressure without having as many people as we thought would be in the city?
I don't think so, because in a terrorist event or a security-related incident, whether we have 20,000 fans in the stadium or we have 72,000 fans in the stadium, whether the streets of Tampa are at gridlock or whether they're sparsely populated as they are at times now with COVID, it's still a major security incident. And that's the one thing that with baseball and with my experience with Major League Baseball. I always try to make the point is, an incident at any stadium is going to be major news. And that's what the terrorists are seeking. They want to use the incident to intimidate people. They want to use it to change our lifestyles. Any word of that is going to do that. So it doesn't really matter that COVID is here and that we're socially distanced. The security emphasis has to remain the same. The airports, everything. It all has to remain at a high vigilant state right now.
Yeah. Let me ask an awkward question here. And this is to you, Jim, because you work for the Rays, but you've done security for the Bucks and perhaps the Lightning, as far as I know. But is there a temperamental difference between a crowd of football fans, baseball fans, hockey fans, soccer fans, craft guitar maker fans?
There's unique.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's some unique traits about everything. We also manage security for the Rowdies for soccer. And definitely soccer fans have probably more for the European soccer fans have kind of given soccer fans a bad image at times because of some of the shenanigans that they engage in. But the crowds are a little bit different, but the threats are still the same. I mean, it's that when we talk about ticket fraud, when we talk about penetrating the security perimeters, it's all the same. Fan behavior is a different thing, and the uniformed officers that are inside the stadium. Yeah, uniformed officers in the stadium. You would like to think at the Super Bowl, where somebody's paid $5,000 for a ticket, that they're not going to get so annihilated that they pick fights or that they try to run on the field, but you never know. So you just plan for everything. You plan for every eventuality. I'm sure that when the chief lays in bed at night, he's still thinking about what ifs that he maybe hasn't thought of before. But that's what makes the plan so great, is all those people saying what if.
Well, I know we've been talking about a very, very serious issue, but before we wrap up this podcast, let's talk about something fun and the Bucks actually making it into the Super Bowl. Now, I know there is the economic side where you really hope that there's two cities that come into your city when you're hosting the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's a double whammy this year with COVID, but I shouldn't say that because seriously, we're really excited.
Yeah, well, let's talk about our roots here. Andrew Warren, I know you worked in Washington, D.C. for a period of time. Other than the Bucks, what's the team that's close to your heart other than the Bucks?
Well, I'm a born and raised Gator. I'm from Gainesville, so I bleed orange and blue. I'm a huge Rays fan, of course, rooting for the Bucks. So this is an exciting time. I think the concern we have is the Chiefs fans. We can trust the Bucks fans to do the right thing, but you never know about the people coming in from Kansas City.
No, they're awful. You're absolutely right. Just awful.
So are you feeling, okay, I'm going to ask you this, Andrew. Do you feel that Tom Brady is the key that led us to the Super Bowl this year?
Well, I think you only have to look at the results, right? The team was putting together some really good pieces offensively and defensively over the past couple of years. I love the way they've drafted, and Brady was the missing piece of the puzzle. The offense was much better with him there. I'm a big Devin White fan. I think that guy's a stud. But I think they've done a really good job of building a winning team. And it's fantastic to see in Brady's first year here that they're going to go all the way and win the championship.
Where are you going to watch the game, Andrew? At home? You got tickets? You going to be in the stadium?
It depends. So I had told my 9-year-old, who's a big football fan, that I would try to take her to the game a year ago, pre-COVID. It's a little bit trickier now to be able to get tickets for me and her. So if most likely I'm going to stay home to watch with her rather than going to the game. I feel like that's the good fatherly thing to do.
He's great. I mean, they have two his wife Alex, amazing. Little Elliot. In fact, Andrew Warren and Alex are going to be featured on a very special On the Record with Sarina Fazan Love in America podcast.
On our calendar too, Andrew, to make sure we don't miss it.
You even get a special graphic in red. And Brendan and Sandy have already been on Love in America.
Get ready, Andrew. She's going to make you cry. You will be crying.
We're excited. We're looking forward to it.
So
That's
fun.
great.
Okay, well, Jim Previtera, I'm not going to and I'm saving you, Brendan. Hold on. Okay, well, so how are you feeling about the Bucs? What do you think? Did Tom Brady lead them to the Super Bowl?
Let me tell you something. I have said for years, put Tom Brady on a football field, and I'm not betting against that team. I mean, and when he came to the Bucs, I remember when the Patriots were behind. I think it was against the Falcons a couple years ago. And my kids were all saying, "Oh, they're going to lose. They're going to lose." I'm like, Tom Brady's on the field. They got a chance, and they came back and won. So when Brady came here as a kid that grew up, I mean, the Bucs '76, I was here for those losses. You know, I remember the pep rallies at Tyrone Square Mall on Friday nights before the game. The players, Dave Pear, Doug Williams, guys like that, they would come over and do the pep rallies in the mall and pack it in. And they would lose game after game after game, and you just keep wishing. But I was there when they won the Super Bowl in San Diego. I was fortunate enough to score some tickets and go out there, and it was.
I remember I interviewed you when you came home.
It was a lot of fun to be there. I got a really good feeling about this. Tom Brady's on the field. He's wearing our uniform. I mean, Gronk's on the field. You know, people say, "Oh, Gronk hasn't done that much this year." If you watch Gronk and you know anything about football, his blocking has been key for us in the red zone.
Yeah.
You know, when you bring him in the game, they have to worry about the fact that him and Brady can hook up at any moment. But now this guy comes in there and he's just a beast. You know, he's a great guy. But like Andrew said, man, we just got a team that's been built so well. And I know that we're pulling for them. You know, we wish we could have pulled that one more step and beat the Dodgers, and then we really would have been Champions Bay.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
But no, I mean it was exciting. I just am excited for the area. I'm excited for the Bucs players. I mean the guys that have paid their dues and been there for a while. I feel like this is it. I'm gonna go Bucs by 4.
Oh boy. Okay. And so I'm going to steal Brendan's question. Where are you watching the game? Are you going to be at the stadium?
I actually turned down a ticket to the game.
What?
Because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to join it was a group thing. But I honestly, I'm looking forward to watching it with my sons. My 3 sons are huge Bucs fans. It's funny for Christmas. I looked at my oldest list, and it was a Mike Evans jersey. I looked at my 17-year-old's list. It was a Mike Evans jersey.
Oh.
So I had to go out and score a couple Mike Evans jerseys for them. But we were doing laundry last night, and I went to the laundry room, and there's the Evans jerseys are hanging on the wall. They're ready. So we're good to go. We're looking forward to just a family out. We talked about neighbors maybe doing a yard party and socially distancing. At the start of COVID, we did some concerts in our front yard. We had a guy come out and sing from the neighborhood. We're thinking about doing the big screen out there and having everybody sit outside and socially distance and just enjoy it. You know?
I'll be there.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Give me the where and
we'll
when.
send you the invite. We're here. We're close by. So.
Bren, wouldn't you say, even if you're not a sports fan, you're a sports fan right now? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Because I follow synchronized swimming mostly. So I was never much of a jock in high school, and I'm still not. But yeah, there's something irresistible about your home team, whether it's the Rays or the Bucs or the Lightning, having this kind of success. I mean, everybody can get excited about it. And my wife, who's even less of a sports fan than I do, she goes berserk on the couch. The dog, it's like thunder and lightning. It has like an anxiety attack wondering what's going on with mom over here. So yeah, it's irresistible. We're going to be watching. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so Joe Montana for the Niners and the Steve Young era. So I believe in heroes, and Tom Brady certainly fits that mold and more. The greatest of all time, perhaps. And I was at the Super Bowl in 2003 as well, and was happy to see them beat my hometown Raiders. You know, it was great. And I just think they're. What do I know? I really feel they're going to win. This has been the craziest last year, of course, and so it would only be fitting that maybe one of the most unlikely events actually comes true.
Sports galvanizes a community, no matter what.
It's undoubtedly a cool time to live in this area.
Absolutely. And how cool for me. I mean, I'm sorry, be still my heart. I have the state attorney that joined me today. I had Jim Previtera, I can't even just say that you're the head of the Rays Stadium because I've interviewed you so many times in so many different capacities. And I have my mentor here, Brendan McLaughlin, that's actually sitting here co-anchoring with me.
That's right. I'm kind of a big deal, Sarina.
You are a big deal, Bren. Always a big deal.
Andrew, they put the rock band back together for us.
Always a big deal.
This has been fun.
I'm
Thank you
just
so
happy to
much.
have been invited.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so, so much. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. Go Bucks, right? Well, that brings us a little closer to game day. Thank you again so much, everyone, for following me. You can always watch these podcasts on any of my social media platforms. You can go to sarinafazan.media to find all those platforms. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook,
You're
Instagram.
everywhere.
I might even have my own news channel soon. Oh, did that just slip? Breaking news. Breaking news. You guys heard it first. Thanks, guys.